Welcome to The Line. Earlier this week, the UNM Board of Regents voted to restructure the governing board for the the UNM Health Sciences Center. Don't want to use that little acronym there. The change was announced Friday afternoon, and the vote came on Monday. Dozens of people came to that meeting on Monday and asked Regents to delay the vote and take more time to look at that proposal, but the Regents voted 4-2 to replace the current 7-member board with a subcommittee of 3 members who are more accountable to the UNM Regents. So is the plan. Now we're going to debate this and what it all means in a moment. What's your reaction to this vote? Do you have an unanswered question about it? What does it mean? Get in touch with us here at NewMexicoInFocus.org. You can also share your thoughts with us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm joined at the table this week by Tom Garrity from the Garrity Group PR. Former State Senator Eric Griego is here. Laura Sanchez-Rivey, an attorney at Cuddy & McCarthy LLP. And I'd like to welcome Mary Torres to the line for the first time. She's an owner and member of her own law firm, the Law Office of Mary T. Torres here in Albuquerque. Currently, she's Secretary of the American Bar Association as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. Right on. Laura, many of the community members who came out to that meeting Monday expressed a lot of concern about transparency. As I mentioned, Friday to Monday, somehow 50 to 100 people came out on Monday. We've had a lot of folks saying, look, big decision, big dough, big churning economic engine here in Albuquerque and New Mexico needed to pull back. Would you agree with that?
I would. I mean, it was, anytime you have such a huge vote that's coming up, you want to try to give, well, if you want to really avoid all the criticism of such a vote, you want to try to give as much advance notice as possible, you know, make sure people have enough time to get comfortable with the idea. And it felt like it was very much rushed and maybe an attempt to try to minimize the amount of dissent out there. But I don't think that happened. I think there was still plenty of people who came out, a lot of people upset once they heard about it, that it was a done deal, you know, as of Monday, and some criticism about whether they actually held to the 72-hour rule. I mean, the rule
Explain
is,
that a little bit, yeah, please.
Well, the rule is that you're supposed to post an agenda item like that at least 72 hours before you're going to consider it. You know, one of the allegations was they didn't consider the extra hour that you lost on Saturday night because of daylight savings, and therefore, you know, it actually isn't 72 hours; it's more like 71 hours. So, you know, there's these kinds of now technical allegations that people are looking at, which is what happens when people are really unhappy about a particular vote.
That's right.
So I think, you know, whether that's an issue that can really make a difference in terms of overturning anything, it speaks to the fact that people are looking at it from a lot of different ways about how to do something to try to change that. And I think it's disappointing. I think overall, you know, it's a huge institution here in New Mexico. It's, you know, the only medical school that we have here. A lot of students and potential other, you know, future students looking at the school. It has a big impact, and I think it signals that there's a problem. You know, this hurry up and let's get this done thing signals that there's a huge crisis looming. And I'm not sure that's how it was presented or that's what it was meant to address, but I think it's just, I think they really did a disservice for the community in doing it so quickly.
And that nature of that problem, Laura, let me turn to Tom on this. We don't know what that is necessarily. It's still a little early. We've got some folks surmising it's a political ploy by the administration. We've got some other folks saying, no, this is just about efficiency and decision making. Well, it's got to be something in the middle there, you know?
Well, and it is, and it's Lomas Boulevard right now, because that's really literally what's dividing North Campus and South Campus. But when you look at the motivations of it, I mean, let's go back to what happened 5 years ago. Dr. Schmidley and Dr. Roth, you know, kind of sketched out a deal. Dr. Schmidley was in the midst of starting his treatment for cancer. And so, you know, you had, you know, that's how this board originally evolved. And I'm glad to hear that Dr. Schmidley had a lot of input, at least that's what's coming out now. But, you know, fast forward to 5 years, it's even though it's not a great economic climate, it's a very different climate.
Very much.
But still, you have University of New Mexico is going into the spring budget session in about a week and a half, and they're going to discuss the fate of a $2.8 billion budget. And about 1.9 of that is all housed within the University Health Sciences Center. So the timing of all of this is of no big surprise, you know, to people who just kind of watch this type of stuff, because, you know, it's truly could turn into a cash grab, because the University Health Sciences Center has been putting a lot of money aside to build a new hospital. And University of New Mexico has been having a lot of public issues with regards to budget shortfalls. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of the motivation. But also, it doesn't affect Dr. Roth's status within the Health Sciences Center, which was a big concern.
In fact, on that point, over the weekend, he got a note from his boss saying, you're okay. You're there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so, the health sciences community is very protective of Dr. Roth, because he's a great leader. And all it does is, from my understanding, it's a paper exercise. To Laura's point, though, I think a little bit more timing on all of this could have helped the process.
I think also, Senator, what part of the angst, it seems to me, let's go to the numbers, the 7 down to the 3. What is being solved here, I think, is the main question I'm hearing. And then also, part of that downsizing was the 2 citizen representatives, so to speak, are eliminated. We don't have that anymore. Is that a problem for you, having those?
I think, on the merits, I mean, there's a good case to be made that, additional oversight was probably necessary. There have been, some concerns in the community, and there's been some challenges over the years with the Health Sciences Center really, and the hospital really trying to engage the community in a way, especially given that the county contributes so much money to them and so on. So on the merits, there's a serious conversation that needs to happen about oversight. But I agree with Laura when she says, look, process is important. Yes. This is a major decision. Besides being a huge part of the university, this is a major employer, a major economic driver in the city.
Right.
And so number one, it was really mishandled in terms of the process. 2, to your point about community involvement, I think that's such a crucial thing because we have, we're seeing this in the bus rapid transit conversation, this sort of rush to get things done and sort of leaving the community out. And even if it's a meritorious project or initiative or an entity that's really, really important, when people feel like they are not included in the decision. There's a lot of people who are now complaining about the process who probably would support the decision of additional oversight.
That's a good point.
But the fact that they just feel completely shunted and left out of the process, I think it's just a bad way to make decisions. And I do have concerns about 3 people really being on top of such a major part of the university system, of our education system, and again, of our economy and healthcare delivery system. That's a big deal, and I wonder, I don't remember if they said who those 3 were going to be yet. Did they name them already? Okay.
No, yeah. Mayor, pick up on that. That's an interesting point. Yes, this idea that 3 people are better than 7, that 3 people are better than having 2 community members, that 3 people are better, what are we solving here? Again, this is a very difficult one to pin down.
Well, I'm seeing these as differently than others, because I'm thinking this is all one university, and I think that's really what the vote was aimed at. This is one university.
In theory or in practice?
Well, I think they're trying to make it be in practice,
there you go.
because, and I think that's what that vote really signified. And how much other notice could they have given? I mean, they've got Open Meetings Act issues that they have to consider. They can't have a rolling quorum, which is, checking with the board members to say, hey, we're going to talk about this. This is why we're going to do that. So I think they did it. They followed the rules, 72 hours. The 71 hour, I think, is kind of a lame thing, but I think they, I know, it's not your issue. I know, but
some of the issues that have been brought up.
I think they are following the rules, et cetera, and I kind of agree with that idea that we are one university. Let's kind of rein people in, and you've got a budget issue coming up. Right. We're starting in March. All of these governmental entities, that's what they're going to do. They've got to work on their budget through May. So the timing, it makes sense to me.
Do you sense politics anywhere behind this?
No,
okay.
I don't. And it's like, just because the regents some of them have been appointed by Governor Martinez, I don't think that there's any kind of nefarious plot there or anything.
Okay. And Tom, on that point, we have a new governor coming in a couple of years who could appoint some more other regions. I mean, is this fatal for people?
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect, it's a political process.
Okay.
I mean, you have people who are appointed politically there. Right. The Health Sciences Center, University of New Mexico, has long been a bastion for political refugees, whether it be from the Richardson administration or the Martinez administration. Right. I mean, so to say that this is an apolitical process is not, I don't think, genuine. But, so what does that mean for the university? What can they do. I think they can actually do a good job in saying, being transparent about the three. Being transparent about how the two entities are working together, because I believe that it is a very symbiotic relationship, and I don't think that the Health Sciences Center folks are all that surprised that this was coming down the pike. I think the timing took them by surprise, because the conversations, from what I understand, have been taking place for quite a while between the two entities of how are we going to resolve this kind of leadership rift.
But it just looks like a movida, the classic, movida that we talk about in New Mexico. Like again, on the merits, there's probably a strong case to be made for unification, for oversight.
Right.
But when you do things like this, and I think if some of the players were different players, we would be hearing that word. We just, and by the way, Jamie Koch, who is the chairman of the Democratic Party, big Democratic, is the leading proponent of this. So I'm not sure it's as political as much as it is just
not
bad.
partisan.
Where's all
per
this coming
se.
from them? This
Well-
idea that Loveless Hospital, I'll bring them into this, is in cahoots with the administration to stop this building from happening. It's out there. Not saying it has merit, but for some reason it's just got legs.
Well, I mean, I think, I agree with Tom that it is a political process in general. If you look, I think what makes a lot of people pause is if you look at who the current president of the board is, the Board of Regents, Rob Doty. I mean, he's got a long history of doing political work for the administration and being the Republicans' lawyer in a variety of things. So it's hard not to sort of say, oh, the fix is in somehow. But whether it's actually partisan is a different issue. I don't know that it's necessarily partisan, but there's always politics involved in this, and I do think that there's some, the fact that they've been open, that the Health Sciences Center has been open about trying to build a new hospital, that's not a surprise to anybody. And anybody who's ever had to have services at the hospital there understands why that's important. I mean, it's old. There's definitely better hospitals around in terms of structure, infrastructure. So I think that's a huge concern. I think that's why people are unhappy about it, is the fact that you're making such a drastic change in the leadership, in such a short amount of time without there being much public input. It just makes people really unhappy. And it does go back to, if people feel like they haven't been part of the process, like they just heard about it, they feel like there may be a bigger problem.
Finish up for us, Tom, on perception issues. I can't imagine this hurts UNMH at all, because...
Yeah, well, the leadership change is literally just a title change.
Right.
But as far as perception issues moving forward, they have to do a better job. I mean, whether it's 72 hours or 71 hours, you should be making these announcements 80, 90 hours out in advance if you want to be able to get true public impact and public comment.
Big if there, if. Please, I'm going to wrap up here real quick. When we return to the line, we discuss what's at stake if lawmakers are avoiding using email to conduct state business.